Hello everyone, welcome back to Be Filmmaking. My name is Brian. So today's episode is going to be the second part of our series called Not How To. In this episode, I'm going to show you how I shoot an interview. So as I mentioned in my last video, I did a little Q&A video for my cousin who's a fitness coach. Okay, so this is more difficult than it seems because when you're doing a normal video of making a cinematic sequence of a product, it's much more easier because you have complete control over the product and how it behaves and everything else. But when it comes to an interview, you're interacting with someone else. So you have less control when you're doing an interview compared to when you're doing a product shot. So it is a completely different ball game. So when it comes to filming an interview, there are a few things that you need to make sure that you do. So number one is speaking to the person that you're going to interview. It is very important that they are comfortable to speak in front of a camera when there's somebody present. Now again, if this person is experienced and have done previous interviews, it's perfectly fine. But if it's somebody that is new, it is very important that you help them to settle down and make them as comfortable as possible so that it makes them speak more naturally and helps you and makes your work easier as well as a person who's recording the interview. And here is how the setup looks like. So for this interview, I did a completely different background for the interview. So I did this in my apartment itself. I gathered around a few things to put in the backdrop and try to make it as attractive as possible. Now for this interview, I recorded over two cameras. So there was cam A and cam B. Camera A was my Sony a6400, that was the main shot. And then there was a Canon, I think it was the 750D, which was taking the B shot or the second angle. So one thing very important when it comes to setting up the camera is that you have to place it at least 30 degrees apart from each other. So that way you get a different perspective. If you keep the cameras very close to each other, they're almost taking the same shot. So it's very important that you keep this distance of 30 degrees so that you get a completely different view from the second angle. Now again, you don't need cameras to do this. You can also do it with two phones. The only thing you need to do is make sure that you place it at 30 degrees apart from each other so that they capture a different view and a different perspective. So coming to the lighting, so I used a total of 3 lights for the lighting of this video. The first one was the key light, which was on the left hand side of the subject. There was a rim light on the back of the subject, and I used a reflector to give sort of an edge to the subject, and then also a ring light that was lighting the subject on the same direction as the key light. Again, if you don't have lights, you can shoot next to a window, which will also help, and make sure that your image is not dark. Now for the sound. For the sound, what I did is I'm using a lav mic similar to this one. So I used a lav mic and connected it to the phone. So I was recording the audio separately, not from the camera. So I was recording it directly onto my phone. So this very good app called as RecForge 2, something like that. So I'll put all the details in the description as well for you to see. So I connected the lav mic to my phone and recorded the audio from this app. One good thing about this app is it helps you set the level of the audio, so that way if there's any background noise, you can eliminate that. You can do the settings over the app to make sure that you don't have any background noise. So it's a really good app to make sure that your audio is very clean. So it's an excellent way to record audio on a budget. So for this interview, what I did was I placed my A camera, the Sony a6400, on a little trolley which I was panning or moving from left to right as the subject was speaking. I was trying to move it as slowly as possible. It was just small movements that were helping to make the video more dynamic. Again, it doesn't have to be something professional. You can use a simple skateboard or something like that to bring this movement. Again, if you don't have that, you can always keep the camera still and record it as it is, and then in post you can always zoom into the video as the subject is speaking, so you don't need to do this during recording. So moving on to the framing of the shot. Now what I try to do is I try to keep as wide of a frame as possible, so that way if there are any mistakes or if I need to change the composition, I can always do it in post. So try to shoot it as wide as possible, and also make sure that you record in 4K as high of a resolution as possible. possible. So that way when you want to zoom in, it doesn't affect the quality of your image. So always make sure that you're recording in the highest settings of the camera. Having that flexibility helps you to frame your video much more better. So try to keep as wide of an angle as possible. For the second camera, and it was a punched in shot, so I was using a 70mm lens on that. I was not so worried about what that camera was capturing because I just wanted it for a few shots, so it was okay. So always try to get as many shots as possible. It is very important. So for this video itself, we actually shot it over 2 days, actually 3 days. The first day when we recorded it, we finished the entire recording, but then my cousin, he was not happy with the content that he spoke about, so we had to do it all over again. So we recorded for the second time, and we got it right in that. And on the third day, what we did is we did more of the B-roll shots. Now adding B-roll is very, very important because it makes the video much more convincing and it makes it much more entertaining. Now just having a person sitting in front of the camera speaking constantly is very, very boring. So that's the reason you need to add a little bit of B-roll, a little bit of context to what the person is saying. So when my cousin was speaking about how tea and coffee, how he consumes tea and coffee and what are the benefits of those products, I added a shot of him making the coffee and drinking it and taking product shots of the things that he was speaking about. Now adding this in the video makes the video much more attractive than just having the person speak about these things. So again, as I said, we did the first part of the video twice, and that's why you will see a difference in my behind the scenes and the actual video because the t-shirt is different of what he's wearing. But again, I just added the behind the shots from the first part because I had recorded all the setup. Everything else was exactly the same. It was just the content that he was speaking about was different. Okay, so coming to the little graphics, images and animation that I add to the video. So again, this is a secondary way of adding a bit of interest to the video or adding a bit of context to the video. So this includes adding the name of the person who's speaking in the beginning of the interview, or in this video, for example, he was answering a few of the questions, so I put question 1, question 2. So it adds a little bit of movement to the video and makes it a bit more interesting. So to keep it simple and fast, I made all of these little graphics, images, words and pictures in Keynotes and then exported them as PNG images. And then later on in Premiere Pro is where I gave it a little bit of animation, shake and movement and a little bit of depth by adding a bit of shadows and stuff, which made it a bit more interesting. Again, you don't need to be an expert in Photoshop or Illustrator and After Effects to create these things. You can always do it in a simpler way. Again, as I always say, don't limit your imagination to your skill set. Just try to use and think of a different alternative to achieve what you want. So if you cannot create these graphics, you always have Google as a second alternative, but just make sure that you use images that you're allowed to. There's always a section within Google Images where you can use pictures that are open and free for everybody to use. So always make sure you only choose from that lot, so that way you don't have any trouble once you upload your video. Don't get discouraged. You'll always have people who give you criticism and tell you what they feel. This is not something that you need to be disappointed with. Now, there are companies that spend millions on research. So if there's somebody coming up to you and giving you a little bit of a feedback, trust me, that's the best thing that you can ever get. Always learn from your feedback. Whatever people tell you is not for you to follow. It is something that helps you get a direction. Yeah, at the end of the day, you have to listen to this feedback that you get from people and then make your own decision. So never hesitate to get feedback. Never let feedback discourage you or demoralize you. Use this feedback, analyze it, try to think about it and see if it makes sense. And if it does, you can add these changes, and if it doesn't, you can leave them. Right? Getting information from others is very important. So use this feedback as something to help you improve yourself and not get discouraged. So if you're new into creating videos and you feel that the stuff others post are much more better, don't let that discourage you from posting your videos. Just post whatever you make. You will always improve on the next one. It's only about being consistent with it and trying to do it as many times as possible till you perfect it. There'll always be somebody better than you, and trust me, that is a good thing, because they being better will push you to improve yourself even more. So when somebody else sets the limits, you know that you have not reached the end. You always need to try more, learn more, and push yourself even more. So if you want to see the full video, it'll be out on Saturday on the R Fitness channel. I'll put the link down in the description for you to go see the full interview video. It'll be posted this Saturday, and hope you guys like it. Also, make sure to follow R Fitness. They post every single week with fitness related information on how to be healthy and fit. So don't hold back and continue to create. Now I need to finish this video, edit it and post it. And in the evening, I'm also going to a friend's place who's going to bake a cake. And hopefully next week we'll get to see a really nice video of a cake. So until then, stay safe and continue to be creative.